I never thought I'd be one of those guys, the ones who get used for financial stability, while their partners secretly despise them. Yet here I am, still processing how 3 years of what I thought was a loving relationship collapsed in under 3 minutes. Some background: I'm 34 and I met Sophie, 31, at a community garden project where I was volunteering as part of my company's outreach program. She was leading a workshop on urban sustainability, articulate and passionate about her work in marketing for environmental nonprofits. We connected over shared values and similar tastes in music. And within 6 months, we were living together in my apartment. From the beginning, we had an arrangement that made sense to both of us. I earned significantly more as a software developer than she did in the nonprofit sector. She was passionate about her work, but struggling with student loans and the financial limitations of choosing a career based on purpose rather than profit. We agreed that I'd cover the housing costs and most of our living expenses, while she would contribute by handling groceries, her car payment, and building an emergency fund for us both. It seemed fair. She got to pursue work she found meaningful, and I got to support someone I loved without feeling taken advantage of for nearly 3 years. This setup worked beautifully. Or so I thought. We traveled together, hosted dinner parties for friends, and even started talking about long-term plans. I've been saving for a ring, thinking about proposing on our upcoming trip to Barcelona. The truth revealed itself in the most mundane way possible. Last Wednesday, I was working from home in our second bedroom that serves as my office. Sophie was in the living room on a Zoom call with her marketing team. I had my noise-canceling headphones on deep into coding when I realized I needed to ask her something about dinner plans with my parents that weekend. I took off my headphones and was about to call out to her when I heard her voice, unusually hushed despite being alone in the room. Her team must have been taking a break or waiting for someone to join, because she was having what sounded like a side conversation with her coworker Jenna. So he mentioned Barcelona might be extra special this time. God, I hope he doesn't propose. Sophie's voice was casual, almost amused. I froze in the hallway just out of sight of the living room. Jenna laughed, her voice sounding light and carefree. That's awkward. Just marry him then. Divorce later, you get half his stuff. They both laughed and Sophie continued, I know, right? But seriously, I'm not ready to lock myself down yet, especially not to Charles. He's sweet, but so boring, like the human equivalent of beige walls. I felt a rush of heat in my chest, my heart dropping into my stomach, but I couldn't move. My legs felt like they might give way beneath me. But those beige walls come with financial security, Jenna pointed out. Exactly. That's the only reason I've stayed this long, Sophie said, her tone so nonchalant. It made my skin crawl. My savings account has never looked better, and I've almost paid off my student loans, another year max, and I'll have enough cushion to move on. I stood there, almost unable to breathe. My mind reeled, trying to process what I was hearing. I just need to buy time without a ring on my finger. Does he have any idea? Sophie's voice was so calm, so calculated. None. She said, her words cutting through me like glass. He's completely clueless. Last week, he was talking about maybe starting a family in the next few years. And I just nodded and smiled while mentally calculating how much more I need to save before I can get my own place. My chest tightened, the weight of the betrayal sinking deeper with every word. The image of our future, the one I'd been building in my mind, shattered in an instant. The trick, Sophie continued, is to give just enough affection to keep him happy without promising anything concrete. I wanted to scream, to burst into that room and demand an explanation, but I couldn't move. I couldn't do anything except listen. Someone must have rejoined their main meeting then, because Sophie's voice shifted back to her professional tone. Oh, looks like Marcus is back anyway. I'll send over those campaign drafts by the end of the day. I didn't even hear the rest. My mind was a whirlwind of confusion, anger, and hurt. I silently stepped back into my office and closed the door. I sank into my chair, staring at the screen, but it was all a blur. I felt physically ill, like someone had punched me in the stomach. 3 years of memories were suddenly recontextualizing themselves in my mind. The time she'd changed the subject when I brought up our future, The way she'd become more affectionate after I paid for something substantial like that trip to New York we took last year, how she'd never quite integrated me into her friend group, always keeping those relationships separate. All of it, all the things I'd missed, the signs that I should have seen. But I didn't confront her. I didn't storm out. I didn't make a scene. I just sat there at my desk, unable to focus on code or anything else. I couldn't believe it. I was just some guy paying for her freedom, her comfort. And now I realize the truth. I'd been nothing more than a means to an end, more than just a partner, more than a guy she said she loved. I was a financial plan. When her meeting ended, I pretended nothing had happened. We ate dinner together, watched a show, and went to bed like any other night, just to make sure I have my money was well spent. Banged her 3 times that night. Then I turned around and made a plan the next morning. I woke up early, my mind still reeling but focused on what needed to be done. I called my parents to cancel dinner, making an excuse about work. They were disappointed, but they understood I couldn't bring myself to explain what was really happening. Not yet. Once I hung up, I contacted my bank and credit card companies. Sophie was an authorized user on 2 of my credit cards for emergencies and household expenses. I couldn't let her have access to them any longer. I requested immediate removal of her status and expedited replacement cards with new numbers for myself. Next, I logged into our utility accounts and changed the payment methods from my credit card to direct debit from my checking account. One she had no access to. It wasn't much, but it was one more thing I could control. I also contacted my landlord and explained that I needed to discuss the lease. I didn't give him any details, just that it was urgent and I needed to make some changes. He seemed confused, but agreed to meet with me soon. Finally, I texted my best friend Marco. I didn't tell him anything about the situation, just that I needed space for a few days. No details. He immediately said yes, offering his place without hesitation. The hardest part was maintaining normally for the next 2 days. We went through our routines, and I swallowed my feelings every time I looked at her, knowing what was coming. She never suspected anything was wrong, which only confirmed how little she actually paid attention to my emotional state. On Friday, she mentioned she was going out with friends after work and would be home late. Perfect timing while she was out. I packed essential items, clothes, important documents, my work equipment, and a few sentimental possessions. I left her access to the apartment. It would be illegal to lock her out, but I took the emergency credit card she kept in her desk drawer. That card, the one she had for emergencies, was the last thing I needed her to have. It felt like the final thread that connected me to the illusion I'd been living in. I didn't want to keep anything that might keep her attached to me financially, so I took it, knowing that in the end it was the only way I could truly sever the ties. I closed the drawer gently, feeling a strange emptiness settle over me. I knew what I had to do, and I wasn't turning back. I left a simple note on the kitchen counter. Sophie, I heard your conversation with Jenna on Wednesday about your plans to leave once you've saved enough money. I've removed you as an authorized user from my accounts and taken back the emergency card. I'll continue covering the rent through the end of next month to give you time to make arrangements, but all other financial support ends today. I deserve better than to be someone's financial plan while they wait for something better to come. Along Charles. Then I drove to Marco's place and turned off my phone. I couldn't handle her trying to talk me out of this. I needed time and space. Time to think, time to process everything I had just learned. When I turned my phone back on Sunday morning, I saw 37 missed calls from Sophie. I stared at the number, feeling the pit in my stomach deepen. There were 12 voicemails and 42 text messages, ranging from confused to angry to pleading. My heart sank. Apparently, Sophie had tried to use the credit card for a bar tab on Friday night and found it declined, coming home to an empty closet, and my note had sent her into a panic. I hesitated before scrolling through the messages. The first few were just confusion. What conversation with Jenna? I don't understand what's happening. Then the anger started to creep in. You're overreacting to something you misheard? This is insane. Next came the damage control, baby. Please call me. There's been a huge misunderstanding. And finally the truth twisted and self-serving. Okay, fine, you heard something, but it wasn't what you think. I was just venting about proposal pressure. Everyone says things they don't mean. Sometimes, her last few messages hit me like a punch in the gut. They revealed her true concern. Not that she'd lost me, but that she'd lost her financial safety net. I can't afford this place alone. And you know that. What am I supposed to do? I have $1,240 in my account. Total, my student loan payment is due next week. You can't just cut me off like this. At least talk to me about a transition plan. This isn't fair. The word fair stuck with me. What wasn't fair was pretending to love someone while secretly using them. The more I read, the more the truth became clear. She wasn't concerned about losing me. She was concerned about losing her source of financial stability. The person she had been with for almost 3 years had become her safety net. And without it, she was drowning. Marco had been incredible through all of this. When I finally told him what happened, he wasn't even surprised. Apparently, Marco and my other friends had noticed how transactional Sophie's affection seemed, but hadn't known how to bring it up. They'd all seen it, but no one had the courage to say anything. Marco said she was always more interested in what you could provide than who you are. That hit me hard. How had I not seen it? How could I have been so blind to everything that was right in front of me? The most revealing part came yesterday when I finally answered a call, not from Sophie but from her co-worker Jenna. She was horrified about what had happened. I need you to know I never thought she was serious. Jenna said, I thought it was just dark humor between friends. Then she told everyone at work, you abandoned her without warning and I couldn't stay silent. This isn't the first time she's done this. Jenna went on to explain how Sophie had lived with 2 other boyfriends under similar arrangements before me. Each relationship followed the same pattern. Find a financially stable partner, create an arrangement where they covered major expenses, save aggressively, and then move on when she had enough cushion. One of those exes apparently worked at the same company briefly, which is how Jenna knew the details. She has a spreadsheet, Jenna said, as if it was the most normal thing in the world, with projections of how much she needs to save. Before she can graduate from the relationship, your name is literally in a cell next to a dollar amount. I was silent for a few seconds, just letting it sink in. My heart dropped to the floor. Jenna's voice softened. Charles, I'm really sorry. I didn't want to be the one to tell you, but I couldn't just let her spin this. That conversation finally helped me feel validated rather than naive. It wasn't about me being boring or beige. Sophie's whole approach to relationships had nothing to do with genuine connection. It was all about numbers and strategy. She had calculated every step of it. I had been nothing more than a stepping stone in her plan. It's been 10 days now. I've moved back into the apartment after Sophie found a friend's place to crash at. I've given her until the end of next month to remove her things. As promised, she's tried multiple approaches to get me to reconsider, apologizing, gaslighting, guilt, tripping, even showing up with lingerie under her coat one night. I didn't let her in. She stood outside, pressing her hand to the door as if it would make me cave. But I wasn't about to let her play me. Again, the financial aftermath has been eye-opening looking at my accounts. I calculated that I've spent approximately $40,000 supporting Sophie over 3 years, rent, utilities, vacations, meals out, gifts. All while she was squirreling away her income and planning her exit. I felt physically sick when I saw those numbers laid out in front of me. It made everything clearer. She had been plotting while I was living with the belief that we were building a future together. Her claims of only having $1.142 in her account turned out to be another manipulation after one particularly angry call, where I refused to reinstate her as an authorized user. She inadvertently revealed that she has a separate savings account I never knew about, over $11. Yes, there was zero in it. That's when it hit me just how deeply she'd been deceiving me. Some friends have suggested I should feel stupid for being used this way, but I don't. I entered the relationship with genuine intentions, living according to my values. The fact that someone took advantage of that doesn't make me naive. It makes her calculating. I wasn't blind. I just couldn't believe that someone would be capable of this level of manipulation. I've already donated the engagement ring to a charity auction. Watching something that represented my manipulated future being transformed into funds for a good cause was oddly healing. It felt like a cleansing of the whole situation. As for the 37 missed calls that started this saga, they've now grown to over 100, but they're increasingly from unfamiliar numbers. As Sophie apparently borrows friends' phones when she realizes I've blocked her, I've stopped answering unknown calls altogether. The strangest part of all of this is how much lighter I feel despite the heartbreak. There's a peculiar relief in having your worst suspicions confirmed. No more second-guessing, no wondering if you're imagining problems. It's like the weight that had been sitting on my chest for months finally lifted. I don't regret supporting someone I loved, but I do regret that it wasn't real on her end. At least I found out before a proposal, before marriage, before kids, before I became legally entangled with someone who saw me as nothing more than a financial stepping stone. If there's a lesson here, maybe it's about paying attention to the small inconsistencies in how someone treats you versus how they talk about the future. It's easy to get lost in the idea of what you think a relationship is supposed to be, but the signs were there all along the way. She treated me like a resource. Her reluctance to discuss real commitments and her shifting priorities, it was all in the details. It wasn't just the big moments, it was the little things, the subtle hints that when pieced together, told a different story than the one she was trying to sell me. Or perhaps it's simpler than that. If you're going to discuss your secret plans to use and discard someone, make absolutely sure you're on mute now for the second story. I work in cybersecurity, and it's a demanding career, constantly requiring vigilance, skepticism, and an unshakable attention to detail. These traits have served me well professionally, but they've also come to bite me in ways I didn't expect at 33. I lead my company's incident response team, always on alert, always analyzing everything around me. It's a skill set I honed over years, and I'm proud of what I've built. But these same skills, the ones I use to catch the slightest hint of trouble, are the ones that destroyed my marriage. Delilah and I met in graduate school. We were both ambitious, driven, and equally passionate about the future we married when I was 28, and I thought we were building something solid. We shared the same vision. Children, family, the whole 9 yards. It felt right. Even easy, as if everything was falling into place. But 2 years ago, after months of trying to have a baby, naturally, we hit a wall. I remember sitting in the doctor's office when the news hit, "Your reproductive health is severely compromised." The doctor said her words like a punch to the gut. Due to a childhood illness, your chances of conceiving naturally are extremely low. My mind raced, trying to process the impact of her words. What do we do now? I asked, my voice tight, knowing deep down that this wasn't just a medical issue, it was personal. It was a dream of mine that had been shattered. The doctor laid out our options: donor assistance, adoption, or accepting childlessness. Each of those options felt like a mountain. To climb, my heart sank at the thought of not having my own biological children, and I struggled to process the gravity of what we were facing. Delilah seemed to hold it together. She was calm, practical, even as we sat in that sterile, white-walled room. "We'll figure this out." She said, her hand gently squeezing mine. "We've got time, we can make a decision together." We agreed to take 6 months to research and explore our options. I was devastated, but I also tried to focus on the practicality of it all. Delilah was my partner, and we'd face this together. That's how it was supposed to be. Those 6 months passed by in a haze of appointments, consultations, and long conversations. We met with adoption agencies, talked to couples who'd used donor assistance, and even spent time with friends who had chosen to remain child-free through it all. Delilah was present, supportive. She listened, she asked questions, and we discussed everything openly. But as we went through this process, there was something in the back of My mind something I couldn't quite place. It wasn't like her to be this composed. I knew Delilah, and I knew that she was someone who would express her feelings good or bad. But through all the research, she seemed so neutral, almost detached, like she was going through the motions. She never expressed resentment or blamed me for our situation. We were approaching this as a team. At least that's what she wanted me to believe last month. I was doing routine maintenance on our home network. I've got a fairly complex setup with advanced security features, including network traffic monitoring while checking the logs. I noticed something unusual activity from an unfamiliar IP address accessing our home network regularly during work hours. When neither of us was home concerned about potential security breaches, I dug deeper. The traffic was coming from Delilah's laptop, connecting remotely to our network odd, since she works in marketing and has no need to access our home systems during the day following standard incident response protocols. I investigated further. What I found wasn't a security breach. It was something far worse. Delilah had been connecting to a private Discord server, one she'd never mentioned. The server was called Secret Sisterhood, and from what I could gather, it was a group of about 15 women who shared grievances about their marriages and personal lives. In this group, I was never referred to by name. I was the defect. Let that sink in. The woman who held me while I cried after my diagnosis, who told me, "We'll figure this out together," was calling me the defect to strangers on the internet. But that was just the beginning. As I continued to dig through the conversations, I found months of discussions where Delilah detailed her brilliant plan to solve our childlessness problem. She had been meticulously crafting a strategy, one that involved finding a suitable man to conceive a child with someone who would never question the paternity. She planned to have an encounter with him during her fertile window, get pregnant, and then present it to me as a miracle pregnancy, as if some divine intervention had made it possible. Despite our infertility, Delilah had already identified several candidates at her gym and workplace, men she considered physically suitable and who she believed wouldn't raise any suspicion. She'd even gone as far as to make notes on each of them, what their schedules were, where they worked out, how often they traveled, and how discreet they were. It was all so calculated, so cold. Her online friends were enthusiastically supportive of the plan, offering advice on how to execute it without anyone finding out. One woman in the group suggested using a just-in-case strategy where Delilah could claim that the timing of the pregnancy had been a miracle, an unexpected blessing. Another woman offered tips on keeping the man's involvement minimal and secret, advising Delilah to never mention it to him. Again, after the encounter, then came the chilling messages that were the final blow. Make sure your ovulation tracking app is password protected. The defect works in tech, so he might check. Create a fake girls' night group chat that you can show him. If he asks where you are when you're with Gym Guy, remember to keep up your usual intimate routine with the defect around that time too, so he doesn't get suspicious if you suddenly get pregnant. They discussed how to handle situations if the child didn't look like me, with suggestions ranging from claiming recessive genes to gaslighting me. If I expressed doubts, my wife, the woman I built a life with, she was systematically planning to cuckold me and trick me into raising another man's child. While mocking my infertility, the betrayal felt like a punch to the gut. That wouldn't stop. I read every message twice. I methodically documented everything. Then I sat with this information for 48 hours. No emotional outbursts, no confrontations. I'm an incident response professional. I believe in thorough investigation and calculated action. On the third day, I executed my response plan. First, I contacted a divorce attorney and secured their services based on the evidence they advised that we had grounds for a fault divorce in our state. Second, I moved half our joint funds to a new individual account and documented this transfer for the court, not hiding assets, just protecting what's mine. Third, I arranged for a week off work, citing a family emergency. Fourth, I packed essential documents, irreplaceable items, and enough belongings for an extended stay elsewhere. Finally, I prepared identical digital evidence packages, complete screenshots, chat logs, and a dispassionate timeline of Delilah's brilliant plan. I created 5 copies. The day I implemented this plan was meticulously chosen. Delilah was scheduled for an overnight marketing retreat with her company, which meant I'd have 36 hours of uninterrupted execution time. I had everything set in motion down to the smallest detail. I started by sending the evidence packages. One went to my parents, one to her parents, one to my attorney, one to her sister, and one was saved for any future needs. Each package included a brief, factual cover letter explaining that I had discovered these communications while investigating a potential network security breach. I wanted to cover all my bases, ensuring the evidence was indisputable and accessible after sending the packages. I moved into a pre-arranged corporate apartment my company maintains for visiting consultants. I needed to be out of the house for the execution phase, keeping a low profile and leaving no trace of my plan until it was time for the storm to break. I then blocked Delilah's number, though I had arranged for my parents to keep their lines open. I wanted to know her reaction without directly engaging with her. Myself, I wasn't running away. I was establishing a strategic position. The storm broke around 9 p.m. when Delilah apparently tried to log into her Discord account and discovered it was already active on an unknown device, my secure workstation, where I was monitoring for any attempts to delete evidence I watched as she started calling me. Then, my parents, then her family. I could almost feel the panic rising through the screen. According to my mother, Delilah's first claim was that I had misunderstood some inside jokes. When that excuse gained no traction, she pivoted to claiming her account had been hacked by midnight. She had called my parents 36 times, alternating between sobbing apologies and frantic claims of innocence. Her parents received the same evidence package I sent to everyone else. Her father, a retired judge who had always treated me like a son, called me directly. Our conversation was brief, but telling. "Did you authenticate this evidence thoroughly?" he asked. Ever the jurist, "Yes, sir. Multiple verification methods preserved, chain of custody, original files secured," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "I believe you," he said after a long pause. "I'm deeply disappointed in my daughter. What do you need from us?" "Just the truth," I answered when she tries to spin this. "I'll need it," he promised, and I could hear the weight of his disappointment in his voice. It felt coldly satisfying to know that even he, a man who had always been protective of Delilah, now saw the truth. Delilah returned from her retreat early, and I knew she would find the fallout waiting for her. She entered the house to find it empty except for the divorce petition I'd placed on the kitchen counter. The security cameras I maintained showed her methodically searching the house, presumably for me, or for evidence of what I already knew. Her expression shifted from confusion to panic to calculated determination. That's when the narrative crafting began. Within hours, she had posted on social media that she was devastated by a misunderstanding in our marriage, claiming mutual friends, that I had invaded her privacy and overreacted to her venting. She sent me emails alternating between begging for forgiveness and threatening self-harm. She told her workplace that I was having a psychotic episode and might show up there. She even attempted to access and withdraw our joint funds, but it was too late. I had already secured everything. I maintained my silence, letting the evidence speak for itself. When friends contacted me, I simply forwarded them the documentation and let them draw their own conclusions. Most were appropriately horrified. 3 days into the situation, Delilah's sister Natalie reached out. Natalie and I had always been close. She's gay and faced rejection from some family members. But Delilah and I had always supported her. I trusted her. I knew something was off with her for months. "Natalie, are you okay?" I asked when I saw her name pop up on my phone. "Matthew, I need to talk to you." Her voice was shaky, as if she'd been holding something back. I'm so sorry, I don't even recognize my sister anymore." I paused, a sinking feeling growing in my chest. "What's going on?" "She's been telling family members you were emotionally abusive, that you trapped her in this marriage. I don't know what's happened, but that's not the man I know." Natalie's voice was tight, like she was struggling to hold back tears. "I can't believe she's saying these things about you." The irony wasn't lost on me. The same woman who had made me feel worthless for years was now trying to paint me as the villain, but there was more. She's been calling you the Project Matt. Natalie continued, her words heavy, like you were something she was working on, not someone she loved. That hit harder than the defect. It's been 2 weeks now. I've remained in the corporate apartment communicating through my attorney. The divorce is proceeding with a court date set for initial hearings. Delilah has finally stopped calling my parents, but she's enlisted mutual friends as messengers. Many have stopped relaying her messages after seeing the evidence. I've experienced every emotion imaginable: rage, grief, humiliation, relief. But I haven't once second-guessed my decision or approach. There's no coming back from this level of betrayal and calculated cruelty. Some have suggested I overreacted, that perhaps there was a path to counseling and reconciliation to them. I ask, how do you rebuild trust with someone who called you the defect while planning to trick you into raising another man's child? Some bridges once burned leave nothing but ash. I'm fortunate that my career has taught me to respond to breaches methodically rather than emotionally. The evidence was preserved properly, distributed effectively, and has withstood every attempt at discrediting it. In the information security world, we have a saying, trust, but verify. I trusted for 5 years. I verified once, that was enough. The strangest part, I'm not even angry anymore. I'm just calibrating, readjusting my understanding of the past 5 years and planning for a different future than I had imagined. A future without children. Yes, I've accepted that my condition makes biological fatherhood unlikely, but also a future without someone who sees this medical condition as a character defect, rather than simply a fact of life. I'm not sharing this for sympathy or validation. I know I made the right call. I'm sharing because everyone should know that sometimes the best response to betrayal isn't a dramatic confrontation or emotional plea. It's calculated, evidence-based action followed by a clean break. Delilah wanted to control the narrative of our family's future. Instead, she lost control of her own narrative when the truth came to light. There's a certain symmetry to that, which brings me peace as I rebuild. 1 week later, the divorce proceedings are moving forward. My attorney is confident about the outcome given the evidence, and Delilah's subsequent behavior in our state adultery includes conspiracy to commit adultery, which her messages clearly demonstrate. Delilah has changed tactics after her hacked claims fell apart. She's now claiming she was just role-playing elaborate fantasies with no intention of acting on them. Her lawyer has apparently advised her to stop making public statements. Her father, the retired judge, has maintained his position supporting me. This has caused a rift in their family, but he's been unwavering in his commitment to the truth. I didn't spend 30 years on the bench to start ignoring evidence. Now, he told his daughter his integrity in this has been a source of quiet strength. For me, I've started therapy with a counselor who specializes in betrayal trauma. It's helping me process the shock and rebuild my sense of self-worth. I've learned that I didn't deserve this. I'm not the defect she made me out to be. Several members of Delilah's secret sisterhood have contacted their own husbands to confess their participation after learning how extensively I documented everything. Apparently, my evidence collection was thorough enough to frighten them into believing their own husbands might discover similar discussions. It's strange, but I find some satisfaction in the fact that my thoroughness has acted as a safeguard for others, even if I didn't intend it. I've decided to move to our company's Seattle office after the divorce is finalized. Fresh start, new team to lead, and distance from the social circle that will always associate me with this story. It's hard to think about staying here, knowing the reputation that's been etched into the minds of people who knew us. This is an opportunity to reframe my own narrative. Most surprisingly, I've reconnected with an old friend who went through fertility challenges with her ex-husband. She's been an unexpected source of support and perspective. Not a romantic connection, just someone who understands this specific type of pain we've shared. Countless conversations, late nights, where I can talk about everything without fear of judgment. She doesn't make me feel like I'm broken. She just listens and reminds me that healing takes time. I'm grateful for her understanding, someone who sees the weight of this specific pain in a way no one else could, for those concerned about my fertility issues. I've made peace with it. My worth isn't determined by my ability to produce biological children. There are many paths to family, if I choose to pursue that later. For now, I'm focusing on rebuilding. I've learned that being a parent isn't about genetics. It's about care, dedication, and love. The rest is just a detail. I've received a lot of messages since I started sharing parts of this journey. One of the most common questions I've been asked is whether I regret investigating the network anomaly that led to this discovery. To answer, simply not for a second. Living in ignorance while someone mocks and betrays you isn't bliss, it's just ignorance. I'll always choose the difficult truth over the comfortable lies. It might hurt, it might shake the very foundation of your life, but at least it's real ignorance. May have kept things smooth for a while, but it's also a fertile ground for deception. I'd rather be awake no matter how painful the truth is. And to the person who asked if I've changed all my passwords and security questions. Yes. Day 1, Hour 1. I'm in cybersecurity, and operational security is practically muscle memory. At this point, it's not about paranoia, it's about knowing how much damage someone can do when given the keys to your life. I trust nothing that's unverified, not even something as simple as an email or text. If I've learned anything, it's that the world doesn't always play by the rules you expect. I keep the details of my life tightly secured now, everything from my financials to my personal information. If there's one thing I've gained from all of this, it's the sharp reminder that trust is earned, not freely given. The first few weeks after everything came crashing down, I had moments where I second-guessed myself, where the doubt crept in. Did I do the right thing? But when I think back to how methodically she worked behind my back, how she tried to craft a narrative that served only her, I know there's no going back. I chose a path of transparency and justice over complicity and false peace. I don't know what the future holds. There's still a long road ahead with healing and rebuilding to do. But for the first time in a long while, I feel like I'm in control of my own story. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.